Hey everybody, this is mid-January and been a little while. I'll give you a little bit of an update. I've had a lot of stuff going on that I can't put on film and just had to get taken care of it. We had an ice storm this past week, put a lot of ice on the trees. This has melted some and caused a little bit of ice damage. Ground is not frozen much at all here. We've had ups and downs, like right now it's 30 some degrees. Giving a quick reference to the old hay barn. Got rid of quite a bit of hay. I think we have about 500 left to dole out, and we'll see where we get from there. Once I get inside, I'll clean off the camera. So right now it's snowing. This isn't supposed to accumulate too much. There's the mud makers. So yeah, it hasn't been for not being busy. It just had a lot of work to do, and we're still cleaning up a few things from last year and my mother-in-law's passing. So but I did have the but I did want to do a video on balers. And the reason I wanted to do a video on the baler is that I've had a lot of questions. I've been on a couple sites. People are buying, you know, wintertime. They're figuring out that, hey, maybe I'd like to try my handiwork at baling my own hay. So I thought I'd do a video on what to look for when you're first buying a baler. Seems to be a lot of interest in that, and there's videos out there that are pretty good, but I figured might as well add another one to it. So first thing you're going to do, of course, is evaluate the baler. Yep, it's a baler. Looks good. Everything looks all right. I would look at the PTOs on it, make sure there's not tremendous slack in them by moving them back and forth, and pull back and forth with your hand. And if there's not a lot of slop there, and there'd be not a lot of slop in there, so go through that. Second is I would go through and I'm gonna get some light out, help us out here. Just happen to have a light with me. I would go through, I'd go through and evaluate the chains. Are they, see that one, they could use a little tightening for next season. Chains all in good shape. There's a chain that I can't get to on the tractor side that drives the reel and stuff. I think it's probably, look at it, make sure it's in good shape. So you're at the guy's house, says, oh yeah, it ran when it was parked and blah, blah, you know what. Number one, you just don't want one, in my opinion, that's been sitting out in the weather a lot. One thing, talking about sight things, one thing you can see right off the bat, look at your pickup. If your pickup has a lot of that across there or no paint at all, it's probably been a lot of bales through it, and I mean a lot of bales through it. This one here I've used, I put about 6,000, I did for a while put 6,000 bales through it a year. I do now about 3,000, and that's the kind of look that my paint looks like. Look at your raking teeth. Make sure that they're all there for the most part. They're not that difficult to change out, but it is something that you would have to buy. You can lift up. Now this is a New Holland 273 baler, but most balers are pretty much the same, not identical, but pretty much run kind of the same way. And I'm looking at a New Holland 273 here. So another thing to check is this is your transmission case. You're going to want to open this bolt right down here or wherever it has one. Check and make sure oil's coming out of it. If there's no oil in it or very low oil, that's a concern. That means you'd probably have a pretty good leak in your transmission here. This is your fill plug. This here should be loose, turnable. It is an air plug that allows, when it gets hot, that it would allow air to escape and help it not get too hot. So you've looked at the baler, you've looked at this, looks real good. There's a couple other things that on the other side as far as your twine. Depending on how your twine is sent through your baler, most of them have what I call the old-fashioned electrical type things on them, like these here things. So one thing you can check too for wear is if these have a groove in them. They'll have a groove right here where the twine's pulled out, or down underneath where the twine's pulled out, or here where the twine's pulled out. This one's just starting to form a little groove. But if these are really badly worn, then you've had a lot of twine through it. You can replace these, you can turn them and get a noose place, not a huge issue. Check out your twine area, make sure it's not all rusted to crap. You want to make sure it runs. So the first thing you're going to do is, of course, bring your grease gun, and you're going to go around and you're going to grease the sucker everywhere where there's a grease zerk. Most knotters, you'll have grease zerks here, 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 up here, across this whole mechanism. You'll have some under here. See one right back there. You'll have one here. You'll have them down here. You'll have them in the yoke arm. Just look around for your zerks, and you're going to want to grease it up real good. And I don't care if the people have said, "Oh yeah, it's ran. We just ran it. It works fine." You're going to want to grease up in here. There's one on each one of these knuckles in there. Grease that. Want to grease down in here. You'll have grease zerks on your flywheel. On this mount here, it's on the other side. And you'll have grease mounts in various positions here. On this particular baler, it has a double, I think I need to get down lower. It's got double safety, and they're up into there. So there's grease zerks right there that need to be greased, and those are, you need to keep very good track of those, because that's what stops your plunger from going back and forth if your needles would happen to fail. So that's a safety thing that you need to, so there's grease zerks all over it. You know, just beware, look for them. If the person has owned the baler at all, or if you can get a hold of a manual, it will tell you what to grease and what not to grease. Do not get grease on these. Do not oil these, as they're supposed to just run dry. It's a brass on a steel shaft, so the brass is supposed to wear, not the steel. You do not want to put oil such as on a bushing like this, because it rides on this cam. You want that to ride and not be slick. You have a brake that's right in here, and you don't want to put any, see it better. You don't want to put any grease on it, as you can see right there, the brake shoes have to wear on that, much like a car. You don't want to get any contaminants necessarily to keep that from working. So first thing you do is you get all of it greased up and everything. Is you're going to want to turn the baler by hand first. Most balers have a flywheel. John Deere's are kind of on the side here. This is a New Holland. So you're gonna go like this. Do not get your thumb or your hand on this side, or you will get it pushed in between. Keep your hand on this side, or whichever baler you're trying to turn. Make sure you're free and clear from any pinches or... So run your baler. This should run your pickup. Should run your plunger inside. Your chains should be moving. So run it over a few times. You can get to You want to do this when it's empty. You get hay in there, you can't do this because you'll have pressure, but so look at there. I haven't heard anything go boom. Yeah, a little squeaking on the pickup over there on the sides of the metal, but all right, so that works good. So I haven't heard any bangs, nothing real critical. Now they'll tell you that, well, go ahead and hook it up to the PTO. No, you don't want to do that because stuff goes boom when you hook that up. So the next thing is this arm, or you'll have some sort of an arm or a counter on here that regulates when your needles, which is those babies right there, when they go up into these knotters and form a knot. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to pull this. So we're going to do this. Okay, that sets the trip here for the arms to roll. So, see if I can show this. So you're going to watch this here move. Trying to get that to stop so I can move the camera. So these are going up. The needles under there are moving up into here. There's one right there. There's another one right there. And these are coming up into the knotters right here, right here. They should just barely touch the edges of your knotter here, and they should bring twine up into the groove holders right here. So, but you're not worried about that at this time. So you're just running this flywheel. Those should come up. And likewise, they should return to their home position. And they should lock in position. If they don't lock in position, you're going to break a needle because they will slide forward and your plunger will hit them and knock them off. So if all that runs good, I would do that a couple times. If the needles come up, everything runs good, looks good, blah, 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 then it's time to put your PTO power to it. Hook that up to the PTO of your tractor, up there, and start to run this at really low RPMs. Now, my tractor and the one I use that my dad has, the PTO speeds are indicated on the tractor, so it's not a huge issue, but they should be ran at the PTO speeds that the tractors designate. So in my case, when I'm running RPMs on my tractor, or when I'm running my tractor, this says right here, PTO speed. I also have a gauge here that says when my needle is up by this line here, that's where the 2200 PTO speed is. So this is 2200 RPM. That's what's recommended for this tractor when it's right there to run a 540 PTO, which is what this baler has. Run it at low idle. Just let it percolate. Then I would bump it up to about 10,000. 1500 RPM is where I usually start a baler, as I don't like starting a PTO in 2200 at its maximum because it puts a jolt on your U-joints. So if you start them at a lower RPM, kind of gear it up and then flip the tractor's PTO up to speed, it helps. It just takes, I just believe it's easier on your PTOs. So you get it up to 1500 RPM, then I would get off the tractor or have somebody else do it for you, and be very leery of everything that this is running, and keep your hands where they need to be. But you can go over here, you lift this up and watch the needles go through on the PTO speed. It would be ideal is for you to be back here and somebody would be on the tractor, because if something goes boom, first of all, if something goes boom, it's going to break a shear pin or it's going to break the item on the baler, and you won't need to shut off your PTO, but you need somebody on the tractor to shut the PTO off immediately if something happens. Just because they say it ran when it was parked, or it ran when they parked it. I've had balers that I've parked that have baled perfectly all year. Next year I get them out, oil, grease them up, start them off. And by the way, I don't just do this when I'm buying a baler. I do this every year before I start baling. I start and do the same thing to make sure nothing has gotten caught in here, no animal has gotten in there and dropped a stick or whatever. I do this every year to protect my needles. Those needles are about, I just bought an extra pair just to have on hand here a while back, and they were 150 a piece, I think. And they were a generic needle. They were not from New Holland. So you do that, your needles come up. If everything performs well, then I would ask the guy if he has some twine. You get the twine in it, and again, for your particular baler, you're going to have different ways that the twine is going to run through this. And you hook up the twine, and you get some crappy bales and put out in front. And at least two or well, let's see, you're going to want at least, to make sure a bale ties right, you have to run at least 4 bales through here to get your packer set, and you're on about your 4th bale will tell you how good of tying it's going to be. You don't want these to be loose when they come out. A baler will tie, well, sometimes you can have a problem, but it's easier tying a loose bale than it would be a legitimate bale. So you want these to be tightened down, and you can keep breaking the hay and throwing it forward until you actually get a bale that's tight. But once you do all that stuff, then you start putting twine to it, you start running hay through it. Now, if the guy doesn't want to do that, or he has no hay available to do that, fine. Buy it, take it home. You can have the understanding that if it doesn't bale, you could take it back. Chances are, if everything you've done up to that point of where you need twine and hay, everything works smoothly, it is running smoothly, it's probably going to be okay with some minor adjustments, to which you're going to need a book. The book is without cause that you need a book for these things. You don't have a book for it, you don't know how to adjust for that baler, for that particular baler. It tells you how to adjust it. It tells you in the order to adjust things. There is an order. You just cannot hop in the middle of adjusting a knotter on these things or anything else, timing or anything, and just time one thing. You need to go in order from front to finish. And that's the proper way to do it. If you go in the middle and say, oh, I'll just need to do this, this, and this, you can't do it. Start at the beginning and go from, especially on a knotter, got to go from the very beginning and go through the steps, because each step affects the next step. I did this 3 years ago with this thing. I put it away for the winter, came back in the spring, wouldn't bale worth a snot, went out and started baling with it. It dropped every 12th bale, every 7th bale, every whatever, and then it would drop 3 or 4, and then it was just so I brought it up to the house, went through it. I timed it 3 different times for the knotter, and just a little off makes a difference. So you need to take your time, you need to do it thoroughly, you need to do it step by step, and not just go into one step in the middle, and that'll do it properly. I'm not going to lie, they're very complicated machines, but once you get to know your baler, they're I won't say they're easy to work on, but they're easier to work on. I should have mentioned when you're greasing it that you need to also bring, I don't like WD-40. I bring some stuff from, it's called chain lube. It's specifically designed for chains. and I can show it to you. It's made by Liquid Wrench. And another thing that has been asked online too, that I feel is very important, is I won't use any other grease than red and tacky number 2. It's Lucas product. It's a red grease. It is not the cheapest grease you can buy, but it is one of the best grease you can buy. So that being said, guys, balers are fairly easy to work on once you have a manual and once you understand them. It takes time. You're not just going to jump into it if you're having problems and make them work. Of course, always better to bring somebody with you that knows a baler, and I'm not talking about the owner. So there's some tips for you. There's a lot more to a baler than what I've showed you. This is just to get you your foot in it, get a little wet, kind of keep you from messing one up. If the guy won't let you run it by hand, I wouldn't buy it. I think that's a big no-no if they won't let you do that. They ought to at least let you run everything through by hand. They ought to at least let you grease it. Make sure your grease zerks take grease. If they don't and it squirts out from the grease gun and it doesn't go in there, that's not a big deal, but it would mean that grease zerk has probably not taken grease for a while. They're very easy to clean. I had a couple on the bale wagon that I have here that were like that. You unscrew them, take them out, soak them in solvent. You can break them open, throw some grease in them while they're off the machine, then go to the machine and clean out the hard gunk that's in the hole that grease zerk goes in, and then you should be okay. You may have to run some solvent through it too. But yeah, there's some tips for you. I hope that helps. When spring comes, I can do another video on how to set up a baler with the twine and stuff. But for right now, that'll get you through till spring on if you're looking for a baler, looking at buying a baler. Those things that I've told you will go a long ways in determining if that baler is going to work for you or not. If all that up to the twine and bale, like I said, you would have a pretty good shot at getting everything else adjusted into working fine. So don't get discouraged. Take your time, read, get a manual, read about it, and I guarantee you will probably do okay. And the other thing is yeah, just running one, running one, messing things up, that's how you learn. They are not going to bale perfect from the beginning. If you do got one of those, then you've got a really, really good deal and a really, really good one. So there you go, guys and gals. That's a few tips to help get you started. Hopefully these are helpful and they'll work for you. And we'll talk to you on the next one. Happy New Year, and talk to you later. Bye.